Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Society of the Eternal Mile podcast. I'm your host, Noah Sias. On today's episode, we're joined by George Archibald. You may be familiar with his interviews on Empire Extreme, Kill the Music, and New Sound. Follow the show on social media at SOTEM Podcast. Subscribe where you listen. Leave a review if you have a moment. And show your support on Patreon at patreon.com/SOTEM Podcast. Slowly getting back into the swing of things for the show. Thank you for your patience on the transition with me. Appreciate it. If you've messaged the show recently, I'll be getting back to you all soon, so just hang tight. Tour announcement. Josh Bearden is out with Distinguisher right now. Those guys are out with Body Snatcher and Wolf King, and that's through the 23rd of this month. One of the stops on the run is at the New England Metal and Hardcore Festival. Check social media for all dates, stop on out if there's a show in your area, and be sure to tell Josh that you heard him here on the podcast, episode 2. Got some cool stuff in the works for the show. Definitely too early to give details just yet, but I think you're all going to enjoy it, whether you're a member of the society or just a fan of the show, so keep a lookout for that. On to today's episode. My first interaction with George was in the summer of 2017 on the Are You Afraid of the Gent Tour Part 1, with Bermuda, Awakened Providence, and Fallen Captive. It was the first stop of the run for us with the whole package in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania at the Smiling Moose. George had contacted us to do an interview since the Western Pennsylvania scene is his stomping grounds for a lot of his publications. In this case, he was interviewing us for Kill the Music. With a lot of interviewers, it can be hard to tell where the interview is going to go. Sometimes they're well prepared and fact-checked. Other times they can be really half-assed with questions that don't pertain to the band anymore or things like that. Thankfully, our interview with George was enjoyable and well done. He's had a wide range of interviews with bands of all sizes and stays fairly active with it. But my experience with him has only been through the one show, and as usual, I thought that this show would be a great opportunity to get to know him more. So here's my conversation with George Archibald. George, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, man. Super stoked to be on here.
When did you first get involved with music?
I've always been kind of involved with music since I was a little kid. My parents, my fondest memories are always listening to like everything on the radio at the time. I was an 80s baby, so like everything. Michael Jackson, U2, Duran Duran, just a little everything.
If you had to name one record that changed everything for you growing up, what would it be?
Honestly, it's going to sound a little weird, but Stone Temple Pilots' Core, when it first came out, that's what started getting me into more of like the heavier rock and heavier, just kind of opened the doorway to go and find heavier stuff.
So people may know of you more as a reporter, but they may not be familiar with your work as a musician. Tell us when you got started with music.
Well, I actually started playing guitar around age 10. My mom first started me out because she was always playing guitar and kind of showed me some stuff. And then it was when I got into about middle school, a couple guys that I was in school with, they wanted to be, kind of form a band. Nobody knew what they were really doing. And I was asked that, hey, you want to play guitar for us? You want to play? And I was like, okay. So I went home and told my mom, I'm like, hey, I really want to do this. And she was like, okay, well, I'm going to guess you're going to need an electric guitar. So let me get you hooked up with the local paper boy and see if he's willing to give you a couple routes to work on and go make some money. And then, I'll help you go get an electric guitar. And from there, started taking some lessons and stuff. Those kids, they all kind of backed out, unfortunately, but I loved it so much, I just kept going.
Now, how about some of your early bands that you were in?
Well, that's the funny thing too, because like I never really got into doing bands until I was like in my like mid-20s.
Okay.
And I was in one band right back in 2002, just a little local thing. A buddy of mine that he graduated high school, I was out of high school. He wanted to do music, so I was like, "All right, I'll help you out. Why not? We'll play together in a band." Did probably about 20 shows together, just local stuff, and then I started talking to the guys that would actually be in the one band I call my main band that I was in. Was talking to them, and unfortunately, I got deployed to go to Iraq for a year, which put everything on hold. And it was kind of crazy because I kept talking to my drummer at the time while I was over there, and he kept telling me about ideas he wanted to do. And I came back February 2005, and February 14th of 2005, we started She's in Pain. Played, a ton of shows, started traveling and everything. Got to go all the way up into like Massachusetts. Got to go to actually Michigan too and play.
Nice.
I played in East Lansing.
Okay.
Of all things.
What venue?
Oh my God. It was so long ago. I want to say the Camel's Hump or something like that. It's like a little bar, basically, right outside of Michigan State.
I don't think I'm familiar with that.
Wasn't that great of a venue. I'll tell you that right now.
All right, so there's a good chance it's not there anymore then.
Yeah, we got up to Michigan and we started walking to university and we're like, man, this is beautiful up here. It's nice. And we were like, anybody know where this venue's at? And they're like, oh, it's right down the street by like a mile. And our one buddy, he turned around, he drove the vehicle with the trailer and was like, I'll just meet you down there. Since it's so nice, we'll just walk. Because, we spent like 6 hours in the SUV to get there. We start walking, get over a set of train tracks, nothing but gnats and mosquitoes. And I'm like, dude, we're in the ghetto. I was like, where are we going?
Right.
But it was a trip though, because like I remember we played it, and there was a bunch of like black metal bands on the bill for the night, and we were kind of like a mix of like grindcore and hardcore, and you just kind of doing a little bit of everything. And it was just I remember one of your guests said the "fuck you horseshoe" before when he said about the crowd. That was us. These guys, they basically stood there, arms crossed, staring us down, and just nodding their head along. And I'm like, all right, I take that as you guys at least liked us. If you're nodding along to the music, you're good.
Right.
And then they came up afterwards and were like, hey, you guys were pretty good. And I'm like, all right, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I've totally been in that situation before where it's just like you're playing a show and you're looking out at the crowd and it's just like, man, I'm literally trying so hard right now on stage to get you people to move and you're giving me nothing. And so, sometimes that can be a bummer, coming off stage. It's like, man, like we sounded really good and nobody cared. But then you go back to merch and then you got all these people lined up like, yeah, man, your guys' set was great. And it's like, well, sweet, but where the hell were you? Like, start pushing people. You know what I mean?
Well, that's the thing, too. Like, we were a band, like, we moved around just like you do on stage. We tried to fashion ourselves after, like, Dillinger Escape Plan and, like, The Chariot back in the day. So, like, if anybody really wanted to look into the YouTube videos from back in the day, we're throwing ourselves around on stage. We're throwing our guitars, swinging them and everything, all that good shit.
So what ultimately led to that band no longer being a thing?
There was some bad blood that happened between me and the drummer, and it was like, I don't really want to say it was just drama, man. Unfortunately, at that point, we were together almost 13 years, gotcha. And it was just like, all right, you don't like this person, I don't like this person, and, you start showing up for shows, and it was like, you just get kind of burnt out being the guy that's responsible, unfortunately.
So when was the transition over to writing and reporting?
I've been writing and interviewing now for a little over 2 years. I owe it to my buddy Josh Dressbling. He was the main influence for me getting into it. Josh had a magazine that was actually a printed publication back in 2000. It was called Empire, just Empire. And then talking to him when I got out of my band, because we've always remained friends, he was like, hey, I'm taking this to the online side, and I'm just going to call it empireextreme.com. Would you want to be one of my writers and interviews and stuff? And at first I was kind of like, I don't know, man. I never really wrote before. And he's like, well, I've seen the things you get involved in. You know a lot of people, and you got the right attitude for it. Why not go to shows for free, man, if you can get in? I'm like, all right, you got me.
Are you still involved with Empire Extreme?
Yes, I still write for them. I'm also involved with New Sound. They're out of Charlotte, Carolina. I've done sent them a couple interviews I've done from up here, and they've printed them already. I'm trying to think who they got. They got my Entheos article, what I did with Shaney Crab, and my Interloper interview that I just did this past weekend. I just finally got it released, where I was talking to Miles Dimitri Baker and Aaron Stetznauer. You guys would know them more from Rings of Saturn.
So you've mentioned Empire Extreme, and you've also mentioned New Sound being your new gig. I met you when you were working for Kill the Music. How did that get started for you?
Well, when Empire Extreme kind of died down a little bit, because I was going full steam with them for like a good year, and just putting out article after article after article, interview after interview with them. And unfortunately, my buddy Josh, the one that ran everything, he had some life issues that he had to, that took up his time. So he kind of stepped away from the magazine. And at that time, things were starting to slow way down. I like doing articles. I like doing interviews. And my partner, I got a photographer I work with. His name's Andrew Bastian. Takes amazing photos. Me and Andrew, we always would tag team events for Empire. Well, Andrew said, hey, I don't want to stop either. Let me go dig around. Let's go find other publications to go write for. And this is also the same way I found out, about New Sound, that was on Andrew's recommendation. But the first one was Kill the Music. That was out of Cleveland. And we were with them for a good while until my publisher decided, hey, I need a little bit more out of the writers. We need content. We need content. And we need content. Well, unfortunately, I don't really have a ton of time to sit down at my computer every day or every week and start writing out original articles every day. We do this stuff for free. You're not getting paid. It's kind of hard to try to balance time sometimes when somebody wants to put that much workload on you. So I kind of stepped away from Kill the Music and got with New Sound because they're a little bit more flexible with my time.
Sure. And so far, New Sound has been a positive experience?
Oh, yeah. They work really great. I work with Kate McMahon from down there. Any articles and stuff I have ideas for, I send them right down to her, and she's willing to put them right up on the post for me. Like I said, nothing but positive so far with them.
Nice. Anything on the docket for you this year with reporting?
I got a couple things I put in requests for. I'm kind of waiting to hear back on. The big one's the Lamb of God show with Slayer. I put in way back in February, and every time I ask about it, they keep telling me, hey, we're waiting to let you know. Usually you don't find out about requests being filled until almost about a week out, 2 weeks out from the show, which kind of sucks, but it's nice that when you get those emails to know, hey, man, you got access in, you know exactly what you're doing that day. It just plays to be prepared, that's all.
Sure.
And then my bread and butter every year is Summer Slaughter up in Cleveland at the Agora.
Nice.
I've covered it the last 2 years, and every time I go up there, it's a good time. Working with a partner, which makes it really nice, especially a photographer. A lot of bands see the photographer first. So, he's kind of like my voice. He'll talk to them and say, hey, if you guys want to do some, interviews or do some media, after you guys are done playing, we could talk about the photos I took from you, and I got a guy that's willing to do interviews and, free publicity if you want it.
Sure.
And I've gotten a lot of interviews from just doing that. A lot of guys are really cool about it. I know some people, they kind of frown about soliciting interviews on shows, but I consider myself kind of a freelance guy, even though I bounce between 2 publications. So it's like I'm not too worried about somebody getting upset with me for soliciting. As long as the band say, hey, we want to do it, I'm cool. If you don't want to, I'm not going to pressure you to to do an interview with me either.
Sure. It's one thing to be up someone's ass, and it's another thing just to be like, hey, are you interested?
Oh, yeah.
So
a lot of guys are, big festivals like that. A lot of guys have a lot of downtime.
Mm-hmm.
So they're sitting around looking for something to do. So, yeah, sure, why not? We'll bullshit with you.
So you're my first guest to be another interviewer, so I'll be running through some different questions than usual for the show.
Okay.
What's your writing process like for doing interviews?
Well, what I do is when I go and talk to a band, I usually have a digital recorder with me, and I just record the whole conversation. From there, usually the next day or 2 days out, I'll unload that conversation onto my laptop, and I'll start transcribing, which will take me probably, I don't know, depending upon the size of the interview, anywhere from 2 hours up to 5 just to transcribe the conversation. That also depends on, because I usually ask guys, hey, what are your endorsements and certain things, and who, if they had a new album, who they work with. So I'm doing a lot of research, checking names, checking, making sure I got brands correct, all that stuff, so that way when it appears in print, it's done, nice and correct the right way. And then from there, I'll usually write my header, and try to write something of an outro. After I get that all wrapped up and I'm editing and proofreading everything through and make sure everything's correct, it's usually just firing off an email over to my publicists. All right. And then they take from there. Sometimes I've written, like with Kill the Music, it was a little bit more in depth because I had access to their website to actually do my own format of how it would look like on the website. So I was actually plugging the photos in, plugging in the text, making it look however I want it to look at. With New Sound and with Empire Extreme, they have their own formats and templates.
I get you.
So they just put their things in that way.
Is there any sort of format that you'd like to try in the future, or perhaps a different medium?
I'd like to do video. Video's a little hard though, because you never know what's going to happen at a show. I've had times where I was doing recordings with bands, and people just kind of stumble into the interview, and it's like, hey, and at least with audio, you can cut that all out and edit it. Video, if you're doing like a live, it's not really going to work too well.
Sure, a little bit different. What are some common things that you see other publications doing that spreads around the metal community in a negative way? In other words, what are some dumb things that interviewers do that ruin credibility?
Well, first off, I would say, I look back at my time of being in a band, and I think about when I go to do an interview with somebody, what do I want to know? What do I want to know about that person? And that comes with a little bit of research too. You don't really want to ask the same damn question everybody else is asking. It gets boring as shit. It doesn't make you stand out. But if you do some research and really get to know who you're talking to, you can make an interesting interview. So I'm going to say probably like just being, dull, like really, come on, man, have an original approach to what you're doing.
All right, so again, with you being a different type of guest, we'll be running through these Eternal Mile questions a little bit differently.
Okay.
When was your first interview, and who was it with?
Oh, my. My first interview, I would say, was back in May 2016, and it was Bill Manspeaker of Green Jelly.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, it was crazy, too, because I didn't know what to expect. Like, I was doing my research on him, and there's so much crazy shit about the man, like, I didn't know about. I'm like, okay, he did the soundtrack for the one Spider-Man video game,
Damn.
that Maximum Carnage.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
he did the whole soundtrack for that game. Didn't know that. He won a Grammy before. All I knew about him was the Three Little Pigs song before I knew I was going to interview him.
Right.
And when I asked him, my first question I asked him, he totally went into Bill Manspeaker mode, dude. He was just like, what do I think about the music business? I didn't even know I was in the music business at all. He just didn't give a shit.
Nice.
And it was cool as hell because we started laughing and it was just chill the whole time. Really nice guy. After the interview, he hung out and just was bullshitting with me. When he actually performed later that night, he had me film their live set, which was awesome. Just gave me a camera, says, "Here, get up on stage, film us, please."
Damn.
Really nice dude, man.
Nice. So
it was one of the better experiences I've had.
Nice. Yeah, that's a great experience to have for a first interview. To date, if you had to guess, how many interviews have you done?
I tried to count, and this was like a couple months ago. I was right around 100. Now I'm probably over 100.
Now, from your musical endeavors, when was your first tour or package opening opportunity, and what was the lineup?
Oh, God. First actual big package opening. That, oh my gosh. I would have to say Red Chord, Every Time I Die, Terror, and I can't remember who else was on the bill, but it was up at the not the Agora, but Peabody's in Cleveland, and that was back in like 2005, 2006. Wow. Yeah, it was a long time ago.
Jeez, that would have been like that's when things were hopping.
Oh yeah, we came into the scene right when deathcore was just starting to break. That's one thing I can say was pretty cool about it is like a lot of guys now that are really big bands. I got to play with them before they were signed to national labels and stuff. Playing with like the Amur guys back in the day on just local shows.
Right.
Them coming to Pittsburgh and nobody knows who anybody is other than, hey man, you're traveling. We're from here. Let's play. The guys that were in Vela Maya, Brandon, their original singer, and Mark, their guitar player, they were in a band from Illinois that was called Mirror Mirror back in the day. We played with them a bunch of times.
Jeez.
And then once they started Vela Maya and came back to our area, they were like, hey, man, you guys always hooked us up and gave us a place to stay and everything. Come play on the show with us. Got to know Chris Franziak from Attila before they became huge. They were up in Erie, and this was years ago when they were first starting out. They were up in Erie, and half the band went home because they ran out, they were having troubles with money or whatnot. And we were like, hey, man, you can jump on our show up in Erie. We'll pay you and everything else. And whatever else you guys need, we'll take care of you. And they were just cool as shit.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's just getting to know the guys that were in your local area playing. I mean, I hate to say it, but I like MySpace for that because it made it so easy to find out who was in your area playing, and just like you could kind of sort through who was just kind of starting out as a band and who wasn't because they had that rating system in there.
Right.
So you could see who was getting plays and who was actually doing things.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
I got to play with Job for a Cowboy on their first U.S. tour,
nice.
Which was cool.
Nice, dude.
Yeah, we there's a band from my area that's called From a Second Story Window. I don't know if you ever heard of them. Mm-hmm. I'm real tight with those guys. And when they did the Delinda album, they did the CD release up at Peabody's, and it was From a Second Story Window, Job for a Cowboy, Animosity, Misery Index. Like that lineup was stacked.
Yeah, no joke.
And it was a hell of a show to be on. It was awesome.
So getting back to your first your first opening opportunity, was that a good, bad, or neutral experience?
It was good. I mean, it was one of those pay to play type deals where you had to sell the tickets and stuff, but we already by that time had a pretty good following, and those a lot of the people that knew us, they were willing to travel to Cleveland to really see us on a good stage to play on.
Sure.
So we got to play, and it was pretty cool. I mean, none of the major acts really got to see us, but from playing that venue, it opened the door for us to continuously play there. It got us in good standings with like basically the management there, so they kept asking us to come back.
Nice. How many shows did you get in with your time as a musician?
Oh, I know the one year we did about almost 75 shows, so I'm going to say probably about 130, 140 shows.
Okay. So Western Pennsylvania falls into a gray area as far as what market it belongs to. It's far enough west that it's almost lumped in with the Midwest scene, but then it also shares the state with Philly, which is a highly regarded city for the Northeast market. How would you describe the Western Pennsylvania scene?
Western Pennsylvania, I mean, we're like pretty much like any other like northeastern market, I would say. The kids are tough. They want to be tough guys. They love their metal. What's nice about where I'm from, I'm actually from Newcastle, so I'm like halfway between Cleveland and halfway between Pittsburgh.
Okay.
So I could choose either city to hit. And what's nice about it is that some touring packages only go to Cleveland and some touring packages only hit Pittsburgh. So the people from this region actually get a chance to go to either market to be able to catch their favorite bands.
Any locals that people should be keeping watch on?
Well, unfortunately, with the scene up here, a lot of the locals now they're not around as much anymore. Like a lot of guys, they've either moved on to being bigger and better things, or they fizzled out. That's the problem with my area here. I'm overran by basically cover bands, dude.
Sure, and that's totally my market. We had a scene in the mid 2000s, and prior to that, underground punk was a huge thing. We had a really nasty venue in town called the Ice Pick, and like you had a ton of different punk bands coming through, and most notably was G.G. Allen.
Oh, nice.
And so a lot of this stuff was well before I was born, or before I was old enough to even know. But we went through like a punk thing, and then it was kind of like, okay, it's the 90s, everybody's trying to do something. And then we kind of had like the whole pop punk, and then that transitioned into the whole deathcore thing, and then metalcore. And then right around 2008, 2009 is when things really just like tapered off. But to go off of like you were saying earlier, when bands were coming through, when they were still cutting their teeth, so to speak, original lineup Danza played in my town, literally like 3 miles from me right now.
Nice.
I wasn't into the band.
Oh,
yeah.
You missed out.
I did. I kicked myself every single day. I listened to like Danza 1 or Danza 2, just like, you son of a bitch. But like you had them.
I got a pretty good one for you.
Sure.
Talking about like the local scene and stuff, like when my band was going, we had, I think we were pretty good, and we built up the scene that there was a bunch of bands to play with in our area. One of the people I couldn't believe we ever pulled to come to actually Little Grove City is Randy Blythe.
Oh, wow.
We had Randy Blythe play with us in Grove City. He has another band. It's called Halo of Locusts.
Okay.
And part of the stipulations with that show was everything had to be Halo of Locusts, not Randy Blythe and Halo of Locusts, not Randy Blythe by himself, but Halo of Locusts. So not a lot of people knew he was coming to town.
Right.
Because we weren't really allowed to say anything. And I had a buddy and one of my best friends at the time, and I'm day of the show, I'm like standing by Randy because we were all bullshitting and stuff. He hung out at our practice space and stuff during the day, and was just meeting the families and everything. And I'm texting my buddy, and I'm like, dude, you have to come to this show. And he's like, oh, I don't know. I've seen you guys play a bunch of times, typical, I don't want to go to the show.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, no, you have to come to this show today. And Randy looks at me, goes, give me your phone. I went, okay. And he's like, is this your buddy? And I'm like, yeah. And he turned around and types in my phone and goes, eat a bag of dicks, signed Randall D. Blythe. And sent it to my friend. And my buddy's like, what the fuck's that supposed to mean? I'm like, I'm standing next to Randy Blythe. And he was like, well, who's that? I'm like, Lamb of God. He goes, no fucking way, dude. I'll be there right now. And it was just a trip, dude.
That's perfect.
Oh, yeah, it was fucking hilarious. I wish I would have got to save that on my phone, but that was like one of those old school flip phones, man. That's how old that was.
Right. Is there anything that you think that your scene could be doing better?
Honestly, I think like the younger kids in this area, if they have an interest in playing music and stuff, go for it, man. Don't let anybody discourage you. I've seen that too, where you get that, you see bands that have been around, and especially, like I said, I got cover bands in the area. They kind of get that bully mentality, like, hey, you're pushing into our turf. Don't let them push you around. Own your skill, man. Own your craft, and just put out music you want to play. Unfortunately, that's what happens nowadays is people, they, for some reason, don't want to play in bands or don't want to do the music because they're getting pushed out, or, they're not taking that much of an interest. You need people to take interest. You got to keep replenishing the pool, man, or there won't be a scene.
All right, so the staple question for this year has been about Warped Tour. This year marks the end of Warped Tour. As to why, Kevin Lyman says poor turnouts and an aging demographic. What are your thoughts on Warped Tour coming to an end, the final lineup, and are the reasons for its demise going to be a problem for bands in the lower and middle class markets?
That's a good question. I know I've talked to you before this. I'm 37, so I'm part of the aging demographic.
Right.
But yeah, as far as Warped Tour, I mean, it's sad to see any tour like that go. I mean, I remember when Ozfest hung it up, Mayhem Fest hung it up. It's like, all right, now what's going to happen? Now what's coming? What's going to fill the void? And people always come up with something new. I mean, it's sad to see Vans Warped Tour go. They were one of the big daddies that were coming around, for years and years. But as far as saying aging demographic, I think it's a BS statement, because you can always find newer bands. You can cater to the audience, and especially with Warped Tour, where they had the freedom to pretty much put whoever they wanted on the bill. You didn't just have to have a rock band. You didn't just have to have a punk band. They could have gotten away with throwing, an EDM guy on there or a rap guy on there. And I think they would have just fit on the bill just the same. As long as they were entertaining, I think, Vans was a little bit more diverse in that, as opposed to like Mayhem where it was all metal, or Ozfest where it was all metal.
Sure.
That's my thing. I mean, as far as hurting the rest of the market, I really don't think it's going to hurt anybody. I mean, I think it's going to be business as usual for those bands. You might get actually more opportunities now because of the fact that I listened to your show. Again, another one of your guys that were on there said that people won't be saving their money for the one big bang of summer. So now they'll have a little bit more disposable income to go around and check out a couple local shows or check out, a couple, mid-market shows.
What are your thoughts on that final lineup?
Well, I mean, my musical taste, I think it's a little bit on the weaker side, but for somebody that's, looking for a little bit of diversity there, I mean, it's great. It's going to hit a little bit of everybody. But like I said, for me, my musical taste, it's a little bit on the weak side.
All right. Now on to some of the more awkward moments in your career.
Okay.
Ever had an interview that sucked the whole like the whole way through?
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely. I felt so embarrassed about it too. It was I'm good buddies with Miles from Rings of Saturn, and like usually every time they come to town, I come out to see them. Even if I'm not working with them, I go out and hey, kick it with them and stuff. But they came to Pittsburgh with Carnifex, Lorna Shore, and She Must Burn. And that night, I interviewed Rings of Saturn. I interviewed Danny, who was the drummer of She Must Burn that night. And just in passing, Tom Barber from Lorna Shore was hanging out. And I was like, man, I'm a real big fan of him. Flesh Coffin just came out. I really want to talk to this dude. And my photographer, Andrew's like, yeah, let's do it, man. I'll take some shots and stuff. And this was before I worked with the script like a dumbass. So I really had nothing prepared. I think I got about 4 questions into it, and then I had the ultimate, I'm like, I'm starting to shit the bed.
Right.
And I'm apologizing. I'm like, I'm so sorry, Tom. It's the end of the night. You're tired. I'm tired. I'm trying to make as best I can with this. And he was just so nice about it. He was like, look, man, he's like, whatever you can salvage. If you can't, whatever, you're not hurting my feelings. He's like, we'll see each other another time. And unfortunately, kind of had to scrap that interview because it just turned out, it was like 5 minutes of good and then 15 minutes of shit. So, but I got to talk to him at Summer Slaughter this past year and got to redeem myself. And he was just like, yeah, I remember you, man. He's like, yeah, it wasn't the best of night for either of us, so don't feel bad. I was like, nice. Cool, man, thanks.
Well, at least you ended up getting resolution on it.
Yeah. Oh, I've gotten to see him a couple times now, and his big thing is I look like one of his cousins, I think. And he's like, yo, you're the dude that looks like my cousin every time I see him.
Nice.
So he's always happy to see me.
Any interviews that started great but took a turn for the worst?
Well, nothing live at least. I mean, sometimes I get guys that don't, they're kind of short and sweet with their answers and they don't really want to talk. But I did an online interview with a band and they're nowhere now, unfortunately. But did an online interview and it sent my questions over and sent them over. The first 2 questions they answered nice and full. And then everything from that point on was 1-word answers. Like, yes, no, okay, cool. And I was like, what the hell is this? And being we were working for their record label to give them the promotions and stuff. And I was like, I even wrote their rep and I was like, are you fucking serious? This is the interview? And they were like, yeah, print it. These are their answers. And I was like, okay. And unfortunately, the band was from Mexico. So some of them spoke just Spanish and some of them spoke English. And I was like, well, I guess something got lost in translation because here's your interview.
Lastly, how about the most random thing to happen during an interview?
Random thing that happened during an interview. Trying to think about that one. I mean, there really hasn't been too much random other than just people walking in. I got more random stuff that happened during me playing.
Well, feel free.
Yeah, the random stuff during playing. We got invited to do weddings. We've got invited to do birthday parties back in the day. We did, I don't want to say stuff got too wild, but we did we played at Grove City College the one time, and that's an old Catholic school, and it's almost like a private school. So, the kids go, it's a university, so they're dressed up in uniforms and everything else throughout the day. And somehow we got put on for this talent show. We got tagged to go in there. This talent show had kids doing like playing cello and playing violin and playing piano. And here we come. 4x12 cabs rolling down the aisleways. All these kids are coming in, ripped up t-shirts, ripped up jeans, tattoos everywhere, piercings everywhere, wild hair, all that crazy shit. And this talent show was put on by a sorority up there. So we get on, we performed one song, because that's all they allowed us to do, was one song for this talent show. And we just basically just ripped the place down, man, tore it up. Our crowd's like moshing and stuff in front of all these parents. It was like a black tie affair up there. And after we got done playing, we just hurried up and started packing things up. And the sorority was like, here, we'll help you load your gear. We're putting on the show. We'll help you handle your gear and everything. And these kids, these girls and stuff, they were like, hey, you guys got cars? And we're like, well, we came here with cars. And they're like, well, none of us has any vehicles. And we can't really get off the campus because we don't have cars. How about we come out and come party with all you guys?
Oh my God.
And I was like, what? I was like, so we're going to kidnap 10 of you vehicles to go hang out.
This is like the plot line to some super cheesy 80s movie.
Oh, it was ridiculous. I'm like, somebody's going to get in some deep shit here.
Yeah.
But yeah, they wanted to come party with us. And their liaison came out and was like, girls, you have to come back in the house. Come back in now. You got to come back in. You can't be talking to them. And just totally cut us completely off. It was like, you fucking scumbags, get the hell out of here. You're going to convert these girls. But it was hilarious. They just wanted to get the hell off the campus to go party.
That's perfect, man. That's crazy.
Oh, it was nuts, dude. One of the most random shows I ever did. And other one was we were playing a show, and some kid walked up to our vocalist mid-set and handed him a porno DVD. And it was African American porn. So hands him the porno DVD, and my singer's like, "What the hell is this?" Just the most random thing. So we get done playing our set, go to the merch table, and this kid comes up to our table and he's like, "You guys are awesome." He goes, "Man, I really would like to buy something, but I don't really have any money." My singer's like, "I got something for you if you got anything." The kid slaps down I think 50 cents in change, and he goes, "Here you go. Here's a DVD for you." And just turns around and hands it to him and walks away.
Oh my God. That's pretty good. About the only thing that I have that's close to that is we played at Champ's Bar in Trenton, New Jersey. And
nice.
we're I don't know if you've ever been there before, but it's kind of in the hood, and it's a real sketch spot. And actually later that night there was a hostage situation 2 blocks down from the venue. But
oh, wow.
That'll be for another episode. But anyway, we roll up there and we're getting our gear out and we're waiting to load in. And we were out with the Funeral Portrait and the Prestige, who had just came into town. So we're all just hanging out there. And I think it was Steve, the drummer of the Funeral Portrait. He walks over to the trash. He was like, "Yo, you guys, come check this out." And we're walking over and it's like, "What?" And there's seriously 4 or 5 porno magazines in the trash. And it's so good because I took a picture of it. I took a selfie with it and you can see off the reflection of my glasses Steve looking down at it interesting. I'll have to send it to you. It was pretty serious.
Everybody needs to know about these and where they go after this show.
Yeah. Well, and then everybody kept saying, "Hey, are those pages sticky?" Oh. All right. So what advice would you give to someone who's looking to get into reporting or interviewing within music?
It's, just kind of do your research. I mean, if you really want to get into it, there's publications everywhere. They're kind of a dime a dozen. Just look into them, even like the local ones and stuff. That's how I started, and just kind of go, hey, I'm interested in doing this. Can you set me up with a show, or can you set me up with an interview? A lot of times these guys will want to see your writing chops, so they're going to make you write a couple album reviews. But yeah, I mean, just kind of stick your foot in there. A lot of guys, man, they're super nice. I don't think I've met one guy doing this that has been a major asshole, mean, doesn't want to deal with me, doesn't want to see me. Usually, the bands are so super nice. Everybody. I mean, I met you, I didn't even know you until I seen you in person and met you in person. And I was like, holy shit, man, everybody's so nice. The Bermuda guys are awesome. I mean, I still talk to JT, hockey stuff here and there. I talk to Kevin still.
Sure.
I'm just like, yeah, I mean, just kind of get, if you're interested in it, just dip your toe in there. I mean, and just make sure you do your research before you go and you talk to somebody, because the worst thing you can do is stand there and go,
Absolutely. All right, so before we go, let's do a plug for your publications. Where can people find your interviews?
You can find, right now I'm active with www.empireextreme.com and newsoundclt.com. You can find some of my archived interviews on killthemusic.net. That's where most of my writing's at. If you really want, you can follow me on Instagram. It's garchibald4. And also you can look me up on Facebook. I'm always posting. Anytime I have a new article or something like that, I always put it up on social media.
George, thank you so much for coming on the show. Best of luck with your reporting endeavors, and hopefully we'll be chatting again soon.
Oh, definitely, man. Thanks for having me.
That concludes this episode. Thanks to George for coming on the show. Be sure to check out all the publications mentioned on the episode: Empire Extreme, Kill the Music, and New Sound. Also, don't forget to check out those dates for Distinguisher out on the road right now. I've been your host, Noah Sias, and as always, thank you for listening.